Hey everyone, it's Carissa and welcome to Satur-YAY, where we are celebrating the weekend by getting our craft on. Today I thought I would share a project with you featuring these We Are Memory Keepers FUSEables. Now these products were specially designed to work with the fuse tool, and we all know how much we love our fuse tool. So this is just another excuse to pull out one of our favorite tools and use it on something other than a shaker card. So I'm showing you the 6x6 pattern papers. Now this is actually a plastic-based paper. It is not a paper fiber-based paper. And what's going to happen is as you use your fuse tool over these products, it's going to melt them into each other and cause them to stick together. So you won't need adhesive for this, but the fuse tool along with the plastic nature of these products is going to act as the adhesive. And that fuse tool is going to kind of create this really fun faux stitching line along these products as we fuse them together. Now I showed you the fringe paper there, or the fringe tape, and this is also the ruffle tape. The ruffle tape actually comes in a roll and it is scored. So what you need to do is accordion fold that ruffle tape in order to create the ruffle. And so I've gone ahead and done enough of that for my project. And now I'm going to cut down some of these pattern papers. Now originally I thought I would use this polka dot paper as an entire card front. I end up changing directions a little bit in there, but I've gone ahead and cut some of these pieces down so that they're more manageable. And then I'll just bring in my Sizzix Big Shot to do a little bit of die cutting with these papers. So I'm using the full hearts die here. This is from the Essentials by Ellen line. And I'm just cutting that heart from this aqua colored fusible pattern paper. And you can see that it cut really very nicely. I got a really nice clean cut, and I'm not using any sort of extra shims or precision base plates here. I'm simply using my normal cutting sandwich that I would with any other wafer thin die and pattern paper. So now I'm just going to run this small heart through the Big Shot as well, and I'm also going to cut this love sentiment. This is a memory box die, and I'm cutting it from some Tim Holtz metallic cardstock. And the final bit of die cutting that I'm going to do is just to add a little bit of a stitched and scallop border along the bottom of this striped fusible paper. So you can see I have all my pieces cut here. The only thing that is not fusible here is that love die cut sentiment that I've created from that Tim Holtz metallic cardstock. The rest of this has all come from that FUSEables line, so they're all going to fuse together very nicely using that We Are Memory Keepers fuse tool. So now comes the fun part. It is time to fuse all of these pieces together. So what I've done is I've just laid that striped piece of pattern paper there right over the polka dot piece. And I'm using my fuse ruler just to kind of keep me from burning myself because I tend to be a little bit accident prone. And I've left all of this in here because I wanted you to see the pace at which I'm fusing. Because you have a couple of layers here that you are fusing together, you want to make sure that you use kind of a slower pace. You want to not go too quickly, because if you go too quickly, you're not going to get a good bond between the two pattern papers. And I'm just kind of slowly working my way across that. Now, the other thing that you have to be careful of is that you don't want to leave your fuse tool in one place for too long, because you will melt right through those layers. So now that I have my scallop piece attached there, I'm going to go ahead and attach my ruffle tape. Now this, when I was positioning it on here, looked a little bit too wide for the scale of my card. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking it over to my trimmer, and I am just cutting right down the center to make the width about half as wide as what it is originally. And I have already accordion folded it, so I have that nice ruffle there. And I'm just positioning this onto my card front that I'm creating. And then I'm going to use my fuse ruler just to hold it in place while once again I go over it with my fuse tool. Now remember, I am now going through not only the striped pattern paper and the polka dot pattern paper, but another layer of the ruffle as well. And some of those ruffles have two layers because it's accordion folded on top of itself. So I'm being sure that I'm kind of getting a nice even pace along there. And in some of those thicker areas, I'm actually going back over it, but I want to make sure that I don't apply too much heat in one place so that I don't melt completely through it. And you can see as I do that, I'm left with this kind of really cool faux stitch line. And I have this ruffle now fused to my card front, and I am just using my fingers to kind of rough it up a little bit more so that it has a little bit more dimension. And then I'll go ahead and trim off the excess using just a regular pair of scissors. Now, before I go ahead and fuse these hearts onto my card front, I want to add a little messy nest of gold thread behind it. So I'm just wrapping several layers of that thread around my fingers, and I'll attach it to the card front using a glue dot. And then I'm just going to lay my heart right over the top, and I'm going to fuse right over this. So I'm just kind of positioning it here at an angle. I'll use that fuse ruler once again to kind of hold that in place. And then I'll grab my fuse tool there. I'm using a coffee cup to kind of hold it on my work surface so that it doesn't burn anything. And then I'll just kind of fuse this heart right onto the card front as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that my cutting mat underneath is not heat resistant. So I am using that clipboard on top of my work surface to avoid burning through my cutting mat as well. So once I get that heart kind of fused on there, I kind of grabbed the edges of it and pulled them up. It's going to allow me to add a little bit more dimension to these die cut pieces. You can see me pulling those up. So it's just fused right down the center. Now I was looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, that's a little too much polka dot for me. So I grabbed a circle die and I'm contemplating cutting that into a circle. And while I contemplate that, I'm going to go ahead and stamp this label here. This is from the Altenew Label Love stamp set. It's a really fun stamp set to have on hand. And I've just stamped it on some Neenah Solar White cardstock and some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And now I'm going to just trim down a piece of foam tape to stick behind it because I do know that I want to add this onto my card with a little bit of dimension. So you can see I'm kind of arranging things there, and I'm kind of imagining in my mind how that would look cut into a circle. And I've decided to go ahead and take the plunge, and even though I've done all this fusing, I am going to go ahead and die cut this kind of cluster of elements into a circle. So I've positioned a nesting circle die. This is from the We Are Memory Keepers Nesting Circles die set, and I've positioned it over that group of elements there, and I am using my precision base plate to cut through this because there are several layers that I'm cutting through this time. And you can see even with that precision base plate, I had an area or two that didn't quite cut all the way through, so I just finished that cut off with a pair of scissors. Quite honestly, I wasn't sure if die cutting all of those layers was even going to work, and I know it was a risk that I was taking, but in the end, I'm much happier with this die cut into a circle than having all of those kind of polka dots all over the front of the card. So now that my eye is happy, I'm going to go ahead and commit and attach some of those elements onto the front of this little circle cluster here. I've attached that label onto the bottom, and then I've gone ahead and attached that love die cut sentiment with a little bit of liquid glue. And now I'm going to attach this to a craft wood grain card front. And I've gone ahead and stitched a couple of circle outlines right around where that circle is going to land on the card front. And then I'm going to attach this banner-shaped piece of Essentials by Ellen Vellum onto the card front using a little bit of tape runner adhesive. And I cut that using a My Favorite Things fishtail banner flag die that I'll link in the classroom blog post as well. So I've added a little bit of foam adhesive to the back of that card front, and I'm also adding a double layer of foam adhesive to the back of this fusible cluster that I've created. I just thought it needed a little bit more lift than a single layer. And once I get that foam adhesive all over the back of that circle, I'm going to go ahead and remove the backer and attach it to that card front where I've created those stitch lines all around the edge. Now I have to be honest, I wanted to create 3 gold stitching lines around that circle, but my sewing machine was acting up and so I only got 2 because I was not going to risk ruining that. Now, for a little finishing touch, I thought I would grab these new enamel dots. These are from the My Mind's Eye On Trend 2 collection. I love them because there are some heart shapes and the colors are just beautiful. And what I've done is I've just actually cut around them while they were still on the backer sheet so that I could position them onto my card and make sure that I really like the sizing and the positioning before I pulled them off of the backer. And once I knew that I had everything where I wanted it, I used my craft knife to just pull them off the backer and then position them onto my card. And now I'm just going to reinforce that die cut there with a little bit of multi-medium in the matte finish behind it. And that completes my card project for today. You see it's on a white card base there. I actually ended up pulling it off and putting it on a craft card base that was the exact same size as the card front. And that completes my card for today. So a fun new way to use your fuse tool for something other than just shaker cards. As always, all the products used in this project will be linked over at the classroom blog post where you can see more still shots and get more information. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.